course, it's all really a matter of opinion. We won't know until the VR historians write the book on this one 10 years down the road, what they consider to be the turning point into a new generation. I tend to lean toward the release of the Oculus Quest as being the turning point that brought us to where we are today, and I do believe it's a new generation. But why don't people accept that? Well, let's think about that for a moment. Uh, I think people put a little too much stock into what guys like Michael Abrash and their predictions for the future of VR have been. So when these guys paint this picture of this next gen technology that's light as a feather, and you can wear it like glasses, and it has perfect, one to one AR, pass through, and perfect hand tracking with haptic suits, and eye tracking with dynamic foveated rendering. When these guys start talking about stuff like that, I think people tend to start believing that that stuff's a little closer than it actually is. And who could blame people for thinking that? It was just, 6, 7 years ago, we would have thought the technology that we have today was 20, 30 years down the line. But look at us now inside the games. But I think, when guys like Abrash got everyone's expectations up, and then we had these top Oculus executives resign from their post because the company, Facebook, wanted to go in a different direction. I think people just assumed at that point that whatever the next thing Facebook gives us is not truly the best we have. And I think at that point, people got stuck in this 1.5 mentality, myself included. And I think that they're still kind of stuck there, even though we're all being amazed on a daily basis, not only by the awesome games that we're getting right now, but the hardware. The hardware amazes me every day, Roots. And it doesn't matter if I'm in a new game or a launch title. The hardware we have now is so far and above what we had 6 months ago that it still wows me on a daily basis.
Yeah, just the tracking alone, for the Quest and the Rift S, not needing the sensors, the wireless, the Quest not even having a computer, just everything about it is next level. The index, man, like people, forget about that. What that is, just an amazing piece of technology. So yeah, the hardware is definitely there, and I don't think we really, and I guess we can't really blame us for not really seeing it per se until we started to see a couple of the really amazing titles that are actually using that hardware to showcase what it can do. I know we just talked about it the other day. It was our, the big game of the week, but Asgard's Wrath, this game. I've never played a game that's looked or felt this good, and people can say what they want, but you wouldn't have this experience nearly as good on the last generation of hardware, bringing it together for what I would consider is the 2.0,
Yeah. Well, you're right. It's on both fronts. Everything has improved dramatically over the last year. In terms specifically about hardware, let's go back to what you just mentioned specifically, inside out tracking. Let's think back a year ago today. If I were to ask you a year ago, Roots, what you thought about switching to inside out tracking, what would you have said?
I'd say hell no, and that's exactly what I said. I really didn't want to get the Rift S. For that reason alone, I wanted my sensors. I really felt like it was going to be jank, the Windows mixed reality nightmare. People can say what they want. I keep hearing it. I even saw it in Reddit the other day. Oh, it's not that bad. No, okay. I stand by the fact that anything, whether it's a restaurant, You're telling me you want me to go eat. If you tell me it's not that bad, I'm not going to rush out to go there. You know what I mean? I want good, and I never would. I did not expect it to be as good as the tracking is on the Rift S. It's near flawless, and we were just talking the other day about the jank of all the USB ports, and even that affected the tracking. I don't know. I can't speak for Vive or Index because they don't have as many used up, but there would be those moments where your computer, for some reason, your USB resets itself, and you have a moment of non-perfect tracking, and it would happen sporadically every once in a while, but it was enough to not be perfect, right? I don't have that anymore. I have less tracking problems with my Rift S than I ever did with my CV1. So your point is exactly, everything that I was afraid of. I've told people in Reddit now, I'm like, no, dude, get the get the Rift S. Don't get CV1. You don't want to go down that USB nightmare. If anything, just because it's a lot of shit to buy. I don't know.
Right. So basically, whereas a year ago, we all kind of thought of inside out tracking as insufficient, not good enough. And if someone told us we had to go to that, we would have protested pretty loudly. Today, 100% the opposite. If someone told me today, "Hey, I want you to go back to external tracking and running cables all over your room, and at all times you have to have at least 4 USB slots open so that you can run this," I'd say no, man, because I've gotten so used in just short period of time. I've gotten so used to the jump in tracking technology that it's just normal to me now. Uh, Optics, the displays themselves. A year ago, if you would have told people, uh, you know, we want you to trade in your OLED for an LCD panel, they would have all laughed at your face. And then you say, well, listen, I'll tell you what, since you don't want to go to the LCD panel, we're going to knock 10 more hertz off of it. It's going to be an 80 hertz LCD panel. People would have flipped their crap.
Mm.
But now, when I go back to an OLED, and it's true, the blacks are a little deeper in the OLEDs. It just has this dullness to it, and I'm sure I never noticed it before, but now having all these bright, vivid colors and this crystal clear sharpness, again, a generational leap, not only in the screens, but in the lenses themselves. Remember God rays, Roots? Remember when they were everywhere? It wasn't that long ago, but not anymore. These are yesterday's problems, and in my opinion, these are last generation's problems.
Yeah, even the clarity, like you said, being able to read the text now is so much easier with these LCD screens versus the OLED, and it just that extra pixel. Like you said, it's what we assume is a certain thing isn't quite what it is when it actually happens, and I guess that's just the case for everything in life. Everybody gets riled up about things, like even myself. I got riled up about not being able to fist bump my Shark Man. Sharky, I fist bumped him today, and now I got fulfilled. So Roots just needed to calm down. Sometimes people just need to chill out, let technology take its course, and see things. It's one of the biggest things. And let's move on to that. I'm watching people on the flip side now saying the Rift S is fucking dead. If you buy, I've seen people on Reddit, if you buy a Rift S, you're a moron. You need to buy the Quest. You get the Quest Link. You get the portability. You get that. Like, none of us have fucking tried it, and the people that have tried it for like 10 minutes at OC6 or something. Like, we don't know, man. Like, it might be amazing. It might be subpar experience. Anybody that's rushing out to switch out their systems now, I think, should just step back and wait a few months, and then they'll know. We'll all know in another month or two, right? Like, we'll know for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I agree with what you're saying here. You're basically pointing out the fact that people have pretty much rushed to judgment on features that have not yet been
They're
released and
doing it
nobody's
again.
tried.
They're doing it again.
Yeah.
What we just talked about, we all did with the Rift S. I had the same thoughts with the tracking, the with the everything we just talked about legitimately went through my head, and I really was not wanting to get the Rift S for those reasons. And it's turned out that it was legitimately not an issue. So I just feel like it, in life, if everybody just wait a little bit longer, at least until you've tried it, or some people have tried it, maybe we'll know. It's just weird, everybody wants to get so wrapped up, and I get it. Like you said, it happened to us too. So it's just, we get so wrapped up and we want what we want, and we feel like we got screwed, and maybe we didn't. Maybe it was a good thing. So
Yeah, yeah, I think that this is a good segue into another thing. What people were saying to their screens a moment ago when we were talking about how the hardware truly is next gen, they were saying, well, what about the next gen features? Where are the next gen features? And in everyone's mind, because we don't have eye tracking yet, we don't have dynamic foveated rendering yet, we don't have extra wide field of view yet. They think because we don't have those things that we're not in the next generation of VR. I would contend that that stuff never was going to be in the second generation of VR. That's third generation stuff. The second generation brought us features like standalone VR, which is, as I mentioned earlier, the catalyst for all of the big investment and change in VR this year. The fact that not only have we cut the tether and we've released VR into the entire area of the world potentially, you can take VR anywhere now, and not only did it break down that barrier, but it's also breaking down the biggest barrier for people getting into VR, and that's the cost barrier. Before, you had to spend anywhere between $600 to $1,000 to build any kind of a VR rig from scratch. Not anymore. $400 gets you real VR. And I know that's not the feature, the type of feature that you were looking for in this generation, but it's a very, very profoundly important feature nonetheless. Probably more important than anything else that they could have done is making affordable standalone VR. And I know you PC guys hate to hear that, but it's just the truth. A mobile full 6 DOV experience that most people can afford is a game changer, not only for that platform, but for PC VR, for console VR. The influx of potential customers that this brings in for developers is going to bring us more games like Asgard's Wrath and Stormlands and The Walking Dead, Saints and Sinners. And we're going to get more and more of these. And I think that the influx of new people into VR is a large reason for that. Hand tracking, Oculus Link, these are the second gen features that we're getting. Maybe not the ones you wanted, but these are the ones we've got. And I think that no matter how much I've always underestimated these new things from Oculus and from other groups, they never cease to surprise me. They're always better than I think they're going to be, and I think that that's what Ruuts was alluding to just a moment ago.
yeah, I agree, and I think this is the catalyst to everything. If you look at if you could go back or go forward like 10 years and they look back and say, what was the catalyst for VR really launching? And it was the Quest, like you said, being able to not only being untethered, which is great. It's what we all wanted, but you nailed it. Being able to take it anywhere, and the affordability. I can't tell you how many conversations I have with customers where, I just throw it out there. I'll just in a random way, I'll be talking about something different, and I'll say, well, let's talk about the real elephant in the room. Where's your Oculus Quest? And then it gets to talking, and they don't know what it is, and then I find out that they've always wanted VR. They've convinced themselves they can't get it because they don't have a computer. It's so expensive. Then they find out that there's one that's $400, and you see a light bulb go on in their head. And by the time I'm leaving, they're looking it up, you know. So it's just a game changer, and I think it's the catalyst for all the games, the next gen gaming that are coming out. Now that these developers or some of these companies, the bigger ones, are now starting to see it's a viable platform to do, you know, like it's all about the numbers, and we don't know what all the numbers are, but I think they're bigger than what we think for sales. I couldn't get a Quest for 6 months, 9 months. It was sold out everywhere. So, but
Yeah, and we haven't even made it to the holiday yet. So I imagine we'll have another stiff period of adoption right there around Christmas, probably something comparable to what we had back in May when this thing was launching. Um, so we've talked about the hardware, where it is now compared to a year ago. Clearly, way above what it was, even 6 months ago. We talked about new features like standalone, like Oculus Link, hybrid, like hand tracking. Let's talk what Roots has wanted to talk about since we started this video. Let's talk software. Let's talk about the new game. So, you know, people are kind of getting spoiled now to having these high quality of titles. And I'm not talking about the Asgard's Wraths. Obviously, this is something even newer to us. But I'm talking about your Hell Split Arenas. I'm talking about your Evasions, you know, I'm at a loss right now for some of the
Until You Fall was really amazing.
Until You Fall, right? These are just today. These are just games, you know. But let's go back a year. What was expensive for a game a year ago? $20, right? That was the mark. If you're paying $20 for a game, that's a good VR game. You know what I mean? And I always like to think back to this example of Anthony. When I first started watching his channel, he used to talk about Compound a lot because he played that demo for Compound and how much he was looking forward to the full release. And then the full release came out and it was $20. No way, bro. That's too much money. I'm not paying $20 for this game. This game that I've talked about for 6 months that I want. $20 is too much. And I'm not really trying to point out him. This was the attitude back then. $20 was a lot of money for a game. But let's rewind 6 months now. Defector comes out. This is a game we've been looking forward to for years. True AAA game. A game that everybody wants. Beautiful, high production quality. It comes out and it's $20. What did these same people say, Roots?
Yeah, it's too cheap. They
Yeah,
said that.
I'm afraid
it's not going to be good.
I'm afraid it's not going to be good because it's only $20. So this is what I'm talking about. The quality, the level of the standard has risen, and even though it has risen slowly, it has risen quite a lot. And I think that the reason that people aren't noticing it is because we just, again, like I said, it's come up slowly, incrementally. Things have gotten better. They've gotten better at this thing. They've gotten a little bit better at sound and a little bit better at graphics. And then the overall, just how smooth games play. That's probably the biggest change is just how well games perform. And you don't get that queasy feeling in your stomach and that headache like you used to get. Some of that's being used to it, but a lot of it's on the game developers just putting out better games now. And Asgard's Wrath, I think, is truly this is the signal. This is the sign. This shows us where we are when it comes to the capability of developers with VR games. This comes from Sanzaru, folks. This isn't coming from Rockstar Games. This isn't coming from Insomniacs. This is coming from Sanzaru. And it's the most beautiful, most stunning experience that I've had since I first tried VR. I'm getting those same sorts of feelings playing this game that I got when I first tried VR. That same wow feeling. And you don't get to say that every day, do you, Roots?
No, usually you're chasing the dragon, right? You're trying to find that feeling you felt when you first started. But the games are getting that much better, especially this one. I was saying that earlier about some of the other games I've gone into, and it's not any fault of theirs, but just the fact that I've played this game for close to 4 hours now, it's kind of fucking every other game over. Like that's mediocre that I might have thought was, oh, this is okay. Now I'm going in it and I'm like, yeah, this is not. It's like, what is this? Not that it's not good still, and we've still got a long way. We were talking about this yesterday. We're still gonna have duds come out that we're gonna think are gonna be good and they're gonna be mediocre. But now the bar is raised. Now we've seen what can be done. And I'm excited to see the next version of this. This is my prediction. I think the next big wow game of this nature is going to be Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners. I think Stormland's going to come out. We're going to all love it, but I don't think it's going to be a wow like this. But I think Saints and Sinners again is on a different level, kind of like this type of adventure game is that type of survival storyline, zombie. There's just everything about it. The more I watch about it, the more I should have this.
Yeah, man. I think what we're seeing here is really the start. This is the start of what we've seen from hardware over the last 6 months. We're starting to see this same kind of evolution in our games, and playing the same game that we played with the hardware a moment ago. Let's think back a year. It was pretty much the norm to have these half janky tech demos that were short, and if we got a good 3-4 hour campaign that was fun, we were content. But I think the standard is changing there as well, and I think that games like Asgard's Wrath, like Stormlands, like The Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners, and don't forget Medal of Honor game that's coming out next year, and Iron Man, and I mean we could keep going on, and these are just the ones that we know about. But I totally agree with you when it comes to this game here. The depth of gameplay in this game is something that is similar to what the AAA flat titles of today have. And I can totally see the comparison you're drawing between this game and Asgard's Wrath, because Asgard's Wrath the same way.
Yeah, and it's an open world, and so it's the zombie game we've all been waiting for in VR. And we've got, like you said, we've been satisfied with the Arizona Sunshines, because it's what we had. It was the best thing you had. Then Contagion came out, but neither of them had crafting like this. Neither of them had a storyline that shifted with your decisions. Like this game, it's just next level on so many levels as far as this type of genre goes. So I just think it's going to be one of those games that again blows up everything. I've been telling people that don't do VR that there's a Walking Dead game and showing them this trailer, or not the trailer, but the gameplay, and it's blowing them away. They didn't know that VR was at this point. You know what I mean? So I think this may even draw some people to look into VR, maybe pick up a headset, or even maybe get a Quest, and hoping to get into PC VR to play this eventually. So.
Yeah, I think what you're saying there is pretty much Facebook's vision. That they've brought down the barrier of the tether. They've brought down the barrier of affordability. And even though, obviously Quest can't hold a candle to what PC VR can do, with Oculus Link, now they've made Quest into the gateway drug. Quest is that first hit that's for free. That's meant to go out there and hook people. And then when people start seeing, they get into VR and they start wanting to learn more about it, and they come to YouTube and they see shows like ours and all the other ones out there, and they start to see games like this, and see us raving about Asgard's Wrath and Walking Dead and all these Stormlands and all these great games, then they start to wonder what it's going to take for them to play those games. And that's where Oculus Link comes in. All you need is the PC, brother. You don't even need a new headset.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and what you were saying there about Arizona Sunshine really points out to me it was never, we're sitting here debating whether or not we're in VR 2.0 or not. It was never more obvious to me that we absolutely are than last week when I was playing through the Arizona Sunshine damn DLC. Arizona Sunshine is a game that I hold dearly, a game that I always have a blast playing in. I've always held it in a high regard. But after playing with this new equipment and this new level of games for the last few months, when I went back into Arizona Sunshine, it just wasn't doing it for me anymore. I mean, it still feels good to shoot things in the face in VR. That'll never get old. But that game really does not hold up anymore. And I think for those of you who are questioning whether or not we truly are in the next gen, if you've been playing with a Rift S or an Index or a Cosmos or any of these new headsets, go back and try to play Arizona Sunshine and tell me what you feel then. Then I want to hear your answer to the question, are we in the next generation? Because I think that you're going to come to the same conclusion that I have, and that it's here, that the change is happening now. And when we look back throughout the history of VR, we're going to look at 2019 as the year that it all changed.